The electric bicycle. I mean, it's become this breakout star of personal transportation, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. They're everywhere.
They're cheap, they're efficient, they seem to solve traffic problems, and they've made cycling accessible to so many people who might never have touched a bike otherwise.
But there's a flip side.
There is. And that's the critical pivot. The same power that makes them so useful also introduces these serious hidden costs.
Costs and safety in the severity of injuries and just this massive legal and regulatory confusion.
Exactly. So what's happening is that you have these incredibly powerful motorized devices being shoved into a legal box that was, designed for old school pedal
And
bikes.
the law is just straining to hold them. So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack all of this for you. We're going to dissect the three-class system that defines what an e-bike even is.
We'll also analyze the chilling data behind the misuse. We're talking severe accidents, catastrophic fires.
And we'll show you exactly how local and global regulations are just scrambling to catch up and protect people.
So let's just anchor this whole conversation with one fact. This is not a niche problem anymore. The Federal Consumer Product Safety Commission, the CPSC, they reported that injuries tied to micromobility products, so that's e-bikes, e-scooters, have gone up by 23% annually since 2017.
Annually.
Yeah.
That is just an explosive rate of growth for accidents. And that 23% figure, that's the national trend. But when you zoom in on the local data, especially on our most vulnerable riders' kids, the situation becomes, well, frankly, it's alarming.
Right. We looked at the data from Marin County, California, that lawmakers used to justify these new rules, and it really paints a picture.
It really does. They found that 911 calls for all bicycle accidents among school-age youth. They shot up 110% between 2019 and 2022.
110%.
But here's the number that really matters. The e-bike accident rate for kids aged 10 to 15 in Marin is 5 times higher than for every other age group combined.
Wow. 5 times.
5 times. And just for context, regular bike accidents for that same age group are only about 1.5 times higher. The danger is so disproportionately focused on these electric devices.
And I'm guessing when these accidents happen, we're not just talking about a scraped knee.
Not at all. The injuries are far more severe. Medical professionals are on record saying e-bike injuries are often, and I'm quoting here, more akin to motor vehicle accidents.
So we're talking about things like brain trauma, internal bleeding.
Pelvic fractures. Injuries you see in a car crash. Not a simple bike fall.
Yeah.
It's truly sobering. When doctors start making that comparison, you know you've left the world of recreation and entered high vehicular risk.
Which brings us to the big question. Why? Why are these specific bikes so much more dangerous for young riders?
It's the combination of the hardware and the speed. The most popular models with this age group are these heavy, powerful, throttle-powered Class 2 e-bikes.
The ones where you don't have to pedal at all.
Exactly. But the real danger, the absolute high-risk scenario, is when these kids are riding illegally modified bikes. Throttle-powered, souped up to go 40 or even 50 miles per hour on roads right next to cars.
And they don't have driver's licenses or any real training on traffic rules.
They're essentially operating unregistered motorcycles in live traffic. It's a recipe for disaster.
So seeing all this data focused on Class 2 e-bikes and kids under 16, what did the local government do?
Well, the response came as California Assembly Bill 1778. It authorized the Marin Electric Bicycle Safety Pilot Program, which passed in late 2024.
And what are the key rules?
They targeted the risk directly. First, no one under 16 can operate a Class 2 e-bike, period. And second, helmets are now mandatory for everyone on a Class 2 e-bike in that area.
The enforcement seems interesting. A $25 fine seems pretty low for a kid on a $1,500 bike.
It does, and that's a critical observation. The enforcement is clearly designed more for education than for, punishment. They start with 60 days of just warnings. After that, it's a $25 fine, but, and this is the key part, that fee is completely waived if you take an approved e-bike safety course within 120 days.
So it's a message to parents and teens.
Exactly. It's saying you need training, and these throttle bikes are not toys for uncredentialed minors. But this is just a pilot program. It's set to expire on January 1st, 2029. Now, to really get why Marin County zeroed in on Class 2 for kids, we need to understand the legal framework. This three-class system is the bedrock of all e-bike regulation in the U.S.
And it's pretty widely adopted now, isn't it? California started it in 2015, and now something like 32 other states use the same system.
It is, which is a rare bit of uniformity in U.S. law. It all starts with the federal baseline from the CPSC.
Right.
To legally be an e-bike and not a motor vehicle, it has to have working pedals and a motor under 750 watts. That's about 1 horsepower.
Okay, so if it meets that standard, it then falls into one of the 3 classes.
Correct. Class 1 is the simplest. It's pedal assist only. The motor only helps when you're pedaling, and it cuts out at 20 miles per hour.
And Class 2 is the one we've been talking about.
Right. Class 2 has a throttle, so the motor can push you along without any pedaling, but it's also capped at 20 miles per hour.
Then what's Class 3?
Class 3 is like Class 1. It's pedal assist only, no throttle, but it assists you up to a higher speed, 28 miles per hour. And it legally must have a speedometer.
The thing that seems to confuse people the most, and you see this in online ads all the time, is the relationship between Class 2 and Class 3. I see bikes advertised with both a throttle and assist up to 28.
And that's the trap. Those bikes are almost always illegal to sell as compliant e-bikes. The key insight is that Class 1 and Class 3 are pedal assist only. You cannot legally have both a sustained throttle and that 28 mile per hour assist speed.
You have to choose one or the other.
You have to choose a throttle up to 20 or pedal assist up to 28, not both.
That 750-watt power limit we use in the U.S., I mean, it sounds really generous compared to what the rest of the world does.
It's drastically different, and it really shows you the different priorities. In the European Union, their standard for what they call e-packs is a strict limit of just 250 watts.
That's a third of our limit.
A third, and assistance cuts out at just 15.5 miles per hour. China and Japan are also much stricter, often with mandatory registration too.
So basically, the U.S. prioritizes power and utility.
Yeah.
Getting a heavy person up a hill over the strict safety and speed limits that Europe demands.
Precisely. We prioritize performance. They prioritize making sure it's still fundamentally a bicycle. And all this power brings us to the most important concept for any owner, the legal cliff.
Okay, what is the legal cliff?
The legal cliff is what happens when you modify your bike or buy one that's out of spec. If you, say, remove the speed limiter or add a throttle to a Class 3 bike or boost the motor past 750 watts, your device instantly, legally, stops being an electric bicycle.
And it becomes
It's a motorcycle. It gets reclassified as a moped or a motorcycle instantly. And that means you suddenly need DMV registration, a license plate, mandatory insurance, a driver's license.
All the things that come with a car.
All of it. So you go from riding a bicycle to illegally operating an uninsured, unregistered motor vehicle in the eyes of the law. The liability is just enormous.
So we've established the U.S. allows this really high power output, up to 750 watts. But that much electrical power introduces a second and really catastrophic risk fire.
Yes, specifically from the lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah.
And it's become a huge public safety crisis in big cities. Just look at New York City.
What's the data there?
In 2023, they had 268 fires caused by these batteries. Those fires led to 18 deaths and 150 injuries.
150 injuries.
And to put that number in context, that is a 1,000% increase in injuries from these fires since just 2019.
1,000%. That's chilling. What's causing these batteries to fail so violently?
The sources are very clear on this. It's usually a combination of uncertified, poorly made, or damaged battery packs, plus improper charging. People using the wrong charger for their specific battery.
And it's not a slow burn.
No, it's something called thermal runaway. One cell overheats, and it causes a chain reaction. It's incredibly fast, incredibly violent, and almost impossible to extinguish with a normal fire extinguisher.
So how is the industry and how are regulators trying to solve this?
The answer is rigorous third-party certification, and specifically you should be looking for one standard, UL 2849.
UL 2849. Why that one in particular?
Because it tests the entire electrical system. This is so important.
Help us understand that. What's the difference between testing the system versus just testing the battery itself?
Well, think of it this way. There's another standard, UL 2271, that just tests the battery pack in isolation. It's like testing a car's gas tank in a lab. UL 2849 tests the whole ecosystem working together. The battery, the charger, the motor, the controller. It makes sure they all communicate safely so one part doesn't overwhelm another and cause a fire. It's the difference between a safe product and a potential bomb in your garage.
And cities are starting to mandate this, right?
That's the critical trend. New York City passed a law in late 2023 that requires UL 2849 compliance for any e-bike or battery sold there. It's the only way to filter out the cheap, dangerous, uncertified products in the market. So as all these e-bikes, both legal and illegal, hit the streets, we have to look at this huge regulatory patchwork that governs liability and where you can even ride.
Let's start with a rider's rights on the road. In a place like California, compliant e-bikes are basically treated just like regular bikes, right?
Exactly. The vehicle code gives bicyclists, and that includes e-bike riders, all the same rights and duties as a driver of a vehicle.
And that includes the right to take the lane, which I feel like a lot of drivers don't understand.
They absolutely do not. But yes, you have the legal right to take the full lane if you're keeping up with traffic, or if the lane is too narrow to share safely, or to avoid things like potholes or debris.
And a recent law actually made things a little clearer for passing cyclists.
Yes, the Omnibike Bill, AB 1909, it got rid of that old, vague 3-foot passing rule.
Why was that rule so hard to enforce?
Because how do you measure 3 feet after a collision has already happened? It was impossible to prove. The new rule is much clearer. A motorist has to change lanes entirely to pass a cyclist if it's safe to do so.
Which is much easier to prove or disprove.
Much easier. But now let's move off the road. The rules for sidewalks are just chaotic.
Does the state law say anything?
Nope. California state law is completely silent on it, which means it's up to every single city and town to make its own rules.
So you get this wild patchwork.
A total patchwork. For example, in Newport Beach, all sidewalk cycling is banned, period. Go over to Irvine, and it's allowed, unless there's a sign telling you not to. And in the city of LA, it's allowed as long as you're not riding with willful or wanton disregard for safety.
So the takeaway for you as a rider is you can never just assume it's okay. You have to check the local law for every town you're in.
That is the only safe assumption. Which brings us to the financial risk. When an accident happens, who pays? Because compliant e-bikes don't need motor insurance.
That feels like a huge gap, given how severe these injuries can be.
It is. If you're on a compliant e-bike and you cause an accident, the claim is against you personally. It falls on your homeowner's insurance or maybe a special bicycle policy.
Which often isn't enough to cover serious, life-altering injuries.
Exactly. And if your bike was illegally modified, well, now it's legally a motor vehicle. If you don't have motor insurance for it, which of course you don't, it becomes incredibly complex for the injured person to get any compensation. The liability risk is just massive.
And what about trails? Public lands? Can I take my e-bike anywhere a regular mountain bike can go?
That's the big debate. The Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, has taken a pretty reasonable approach. They've given their local officers the power to exclude e-bikes from the definition of an off-road vehicle, or ORV.
Which is a good thing for access, right?
It is. It means local managers can allow e-bikes on some non-motorized trails, treating them like traditional bikes. But it's a site-by-site decision. It's not a blanket permission slip. You have to check the map for that specific park or trail system.
This has been a really comprehensive, deep dive into this regulatory maze that surrounds the fastest growing part of personal transportation. And I think there are 3 key takeaways for you, our listener, to navigate this safely.
Absolutely. First, the classification system, class 1, 2, and 3, it's everything. It determines where you can legally ride.
Second, you have to insist on that system-wide safety certification. Look for UL 2849 to make sure your bike won't catastrophically fail and catch fire.
And third, you have to understand the severe financial and legal liabilities that come with modifying your bike. The second you go past the legal limits, it's not a bicycle anymore. It's an uninsured motor vehicle.
And being informed about these rules isn't just about avoiding a ticket. It's about your safety. It's about protecting yourself from huge liability. And at the end of the day, it's about enjoying this incredible technology without hurting yourself or someone else.
I agree completely. And so here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on. The big fight right now often pits these legal low-speed e-bikes against these high-powered, often illegal e-motos.
Right.
Given the doctors are seeing injuries that look more like car crashes, what is it going to take for policymakers and for us as consumers to legally define and completely separate those e-motos from the bicycle category? And maybe a follow-up. Should only the certified lower-speed devices be the ones that retain access to bike lanes and trails shared with pedestrians and cyclists? Think about that when you're looking at your next purchase.